Today is January 2nd, and we are reading from Matthew chapter 2. The Bible says in that second chapter of Matthew, verse 1, "Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king." Now Herod was not a very nice leader. He was referred to historically as Herod the Great, and in many ways he was a great leader. He was great politically. He was gifted. He was an administrator. He brought tremendous famine relief. He was a builder, including he built the temple. But he loved power, and he was very corrupt, very wicked, very evil. And it's interesting that Jesus, the Messiah, would be born right in the middle of that chaos. No wonder the Bible tells us that those that are in darkness have seen a great light. So here Jesus born in the days of Herod the king. Then it says, "Behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem." Now, most believe historically that these were not kings, but they were astrologers. And there were not three, as we oftentimes consider. I mean, that's the storyline we hear, but it's not what's in the Bible. It was probably a very large company of these men that were coming. They were not at the manger, as we oftentimes see that picture, but that's an attempt to try to bring this whole story together. They were probably Jews that had been exiled and who were familiar with prophecy. And so this star shows up. And so they follow this star, believing that there's a connection here. It says here that where is he who's born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star. Isn't it interesting that they refer to this as his star? Because the Bible speaks about this in Numbers 24:17, that a star shall come out of Jacob. In verse 9 of Matthew here too, it says, "When they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them." So remember, they saw this star there. Now, we don't know whether this star guided them, whether they just saw it and followed it, but we do know this, that it took these magi several months to arrive. In fact, the Bible says that they, in verse 11, that when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother. So several months has passed by before they actually arrive. But the interesting part is that these, no doubt, are Jews familiar with the sacred prophecies. And though this star signals something significant, and they follow the star, and I think they are frankly very surprised that the Jews back in Jerusalem don't seem to be paying much attention to this star. And so they begin raising questions. In that second verse, "Where is he who's been born King of the Jews?" Now, it's an interesting phrase because you're not born a king. You're usually a princess first, and then you work your way and thinking, but here's one that's born a king. And they acknowledge that the signal of the star is significant, and said, "Hey, listen, we've come to worship him." And but now in verse 3 it says, "Herod was troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him." So somehow these magi come and they awaken the community to this significant event. And Herod is troubled because his power, his throne is threatened. And he is greatly disturbed by this. Micah 5:2 tells us something significant is going to happen in Bethlehem. Bethlehem's only a few miles away from Jerusalem. So the wise men show up and they offer gifts, they worship, they bow, and they pledge their allegiance to this no ordinary child. Now, dropping down, if you will, Herod in verse 7 says, "Hey, listen, he said, search carefully for the young child, and when you found him, bring back word to me that I may come and worship him also." Now we know Herod had no interest in worshiping this child, But he had picked up the language that this was not just a child. This was a one destined for the throne, though he didn't understand what throne. And so now he's trying to seduce them, and they have a visitation. These astrologers have a visitation. They're told by God to go another route. When the king realizes that he's been betrayed, then he ends up then going and searching for this child himself. Now, if you drop down to verse 16, the Bible says that when Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry, and he sent forth and put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem and all of its districts. What a horrible day this must have been. And the slaughter of all these children, 2 years of age and under. Now, it's an interesting event, because we find children play a significant role in Bible prophecy. When Moses was born, he was born in the midst of the killing of all the male children. It was significant because it was Moses rising up as the great deliverer. He was the one who's going to lead the children of Israel out of slavery. It was significant that the children were being slaughtered. Then we find when Jesus is born, he's born at a time in which Herod slaughters a bunch of kids. Now think about it. We're living now at the time period in which many believe Jesus is soon coming again. And here we are, in America, 60 million children have been sacrificed. And all this signals something significant in the heavenlies, because Satan hates children, and he does everything he can to destroy them. Well, we see the angelic visitation once again revealed in Joseph in a dream, that he needs to depart to protect the child. All of this gives to us a tremendous revelation of the incredible sovereignty of God. Matthew chapter 2, wise men from the east, directed by God by a star, Herod the king, the enemy of God, and yet God delivers the child out of the midst of the chaos. And again, those in darkness have seen a great light. Hey, may God bless you today, and thank Jesus that he came into the world to save you and I, to bring light in our dark world. God bless you today.